is the 7 o'clock hour. Aloha, kakahiaka, one and all, Richard David. Hamada Jr. III with you, and once again, delighted that you're joining us for the 7 o'clock hour. As you know, this hour is reserved for the fellas, and in studio today, Vice President of SHOPO, Steve Keogh, retired Major Mark Criccio. We have a very special guest that I'll have you introduce in a moment, Brother Steve. But good morning, one and all.
Good morning, Rick. Always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners.
Thank you so very much for taking the time. As always, Brother Mark.
Good morning and happy Monday.
It is Monday already. You know,
Yep.
It's still my 7th favorite day of the week. Still, after all these years. But made better because you fellas are here.
Your sweet talk on us. Thanks, Rick.
Well, I'll use my Barry White voice in a moment. Maybe that will help.
Or Lou Rawls.
You'll never find. There we
Oh,
go.
geez.
All right,
Should I
here
leave
we
the
go.
room?
No. Just turn the lights out on the way. Brother Steve, why do we do this program?
Rick, we appreciate the venue that you provide for us. This is an opportunity for the communities island-wide, the different counties island-wide, to feel more connected with the men and women that wear the uniform and protect and serve every day.
Very good. Mark, how about you?
Yep. We discuss it many times. We just want to give our half of the story. For many, many years, it's been one-sided out there. I finally retired, got in touch with you. You gave us, gave us the venue here to just tell our side of the story. And I encourage people that feel that we're one-sided, please call in. We want to hear the other side. If you don't like what we're saying or you think something's wrong, call in, or come on the show.
Lines are open.
Yeah.
521-8383. Perspective, Brother Mark and I have known each other a long time, and thank goodness that we have not had to deal with other cities, law enforcement agencies, the time that we have spent together. And we'll
leave it at that.
We'll just stop right there. However, Brother Steve, we have a very special guest in studio. Would you do the intro, please?
Rick, it'd be my pleasure. So fill in the third seat today. We have Walt Gouveia. Walt Gouveia currently works here in the Honolulu office. He's one of our business agents here. He's been with us for a year and a half. He did 28 years of service with Honolulu PD, and we feel real fortunate that when he decided to go in retirement, that he was willing to come back and serve the men and women with SHOPO and assist us with, as a business agent, handling different grievances and such like that. We're happy to have him. Good morning, Walt.
Good morning, guys. Thank you. Happy to be here.
It is a pleasure indeed. Brother Walt, would you mind, just for our audience, brief background, introduction, tell us about yourself, would you please?
I was with HP, like Steve mentioned, for 28 years, retired in 2020. I was a member of SHOPO for 8 years prior to my retirement. Mm-hmm. And upon retiring, I became a business agent over at SHOPO. So I've been doing that now for about a year and a half.
What is technically a business agent?
Business agents are advocates for our officers. When an officer is being notified that they're being under investigation, we assist them with the investigative process. And then if throughout that investigation, discipline is meted out, then we go ahead and assist them with the grievance.
We're going to go through some of that process today, if that's okay. So I think it's valuable that the public really understands what this means, because you mentioned, Mark, having both sides. If we're just treated to news reports and headlines, it is so very incomplete and doesn't tell the full story in regard to our officers. Would you agree, Walt?
Absolutely. The public never hears the entire story.
Yeah.
They hear only excerpts of what is released by the department or by the prosecutor's office, and that's all they have to go by. Right. So a lot of times our officers are deemed guilty in the public eye when that's not really the case.
Gotcha. We're going to get into that in a few short moments, but once again, it is the SHOPO Hour. Before we take a traffic update, Brother Steve, this past week was Police Week. I believe it should be every week, but a commemorative week. I was blessed to have attended the memorial service for our fallen officers at the state capitol. And I've shared and expressed here on the program. But I'm telling you, I wish every citizen would attend, because it was so moving to hear not only the spoken words, but to watch, and the commemoration for the officers on the wall that were given such honor and respect and in memory. But what struck me was in a seated area were the families of the officers. And when Tiffany's name was called, done.
Yeah.
It was such an emotional event. And I just wish more people would take a small amount of time so you could really have a better understanding of service with the HPD.
It's powerful, isn't it, Rick? And it's, you really can't, you feel it. It's palatable. It's in the air. It's there. And you even if the passing of the individual that gave the ultimate sacrifice, it can be 20 years, and you still see and feel the weight, that sadness that family carries. Now, obviously, they died with honor. They died protecting and serving, and they gave the ultimate sacrifice. And their family truly knows that their loved one that passed was a hero. And we appreciate you on this platform, Rick, bringing attention to that. And that's what really Police Week was all about. Again, 1962, President Kennedy wanted to draw attention to those law enforcement officers that gave the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And it's just, I think it also too, Rick, it reminds the public that we're human beings. We're regular people. We just have kind of an irregular job. We have loved ones, we have families, we have responsibilities, and it just, I think it humanizes the badge.
Amen. Amen. Brother Mark, thoughts?
Yeah, exactly like you said. Once a year is not enough. You know, these men and women living in past, you know, the public needs to see the service and sacrifice that they do for their community. So, and on another note, I was up at Hawaiian Memorial Park, and I don't know if people know this, but there's an area, Fort Honolulu Police Department, for fallen officers also. So, you know, I was up there visiting a few friends, and yeah, it hit home, man. It hits home.
Yeah.
So,
I was thinking of you, brother.
Yeah.
I was thinking of you.
And Rick, if I can just one other thing, the way that current officers on the job honor those officers that are fallen is they come in every day and give their best. That's how we honor those that have passed in the line of duty, is to try to the best of our individual abilities, do the job as best we can, wear the uniform with pride and excellence. And that's really how we honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifices, that by doing the job as best as we can to serve the communities.
Before we take a break, Brother Walt, love to hear your thoughts, Police Week and more.
Yeah, like everybody, you know, expressed, 1 week a year is not enough. You know, the people who have lost loved ones, they deal with it every day of the year. So for that 1 week, it's for everybody to recognize what the family member chose to do. They chose this profession, and nobody forced them to it. They chose to do it, and they paid the ultimate sacrifice.
It is, once again, the start of another week. We always kick it off with the SHOPO Hour. Telephone number 521-8383. Much aloha to Brother Bobby, Brother Nick, and glad that Brother Walt is with us today. We're going to get into some of the details that you may not know about, and that has to do with our officers. And when we return, we'll take your calls at 521-8383. We'll also cover a couple of new stories that are taking place, but it is the SHOPO Hour. All right, we have a straight shot to the bottom of the hour at 521-8383. Any questions for our boys? Give us a call. And let's jump right in with Walt, if that's possible. Walt, first of all, your experience with SHOPO as a member, can you share a bit about that, and then what led you to becoming business agent?
Well, as a member of SHOPO, what I notice is that they're always there for the members, and that's important. Because when you're working, you're just doing a job. A lot of people don't pay attention to what the union does for you. So we stress that the officers be aware of how much SHOPO does, be aware of their contract, And as I got involved more and more with the union, that made me want to take a bigger position within the union in order to help our members more.
If we were to summarize what SHOPO does for its members, how would you describe that?
They pretty much look out for the officers' rights, and they negotiate the contracts to make sure it's what's best for our officers to keep them safe, get them not only pay raises, but make sure working conditions are fair. And like I said, they're working safely. They get the best equipment. They make sure that all of those things are in line so that our officers can do the best job they can out there.
Are you business agent for the entire state, all counties, or specifically Honolulu?
Specifically Honolulu.
Okay. Where we have the majority, obviously, of
Yes.
membership.
Yes.
Is there, in your time as business agent, one particular situation that you had to help navigate with an officer that there was a disconnect between the reality and what the public was being told?
In almost every grievance that comes to us, that is pretty much the case.
Mm-hmm.
So we find things out throughout our investigation, and then we present that during the grievance process. And then whether it comes out later on down the line, it's not going to come out through SHOPO because of confidentiality. It comes out via the prosecutor's office or if the department releases that particular information.
Maybe a definition of term, grievance. What is the definition and what is the process?
A grievance is when an officer gets disciplined and they want to grieve that discipline, which means they feel that the discipline was unfair or excessive.
Okay.
So we review the grievance, we review the discipline, and then we pair it up with prior cases which were similar to what that officer presents, and then we go forward with the grievance process.
We'll stop for just a second and bring in Brother Mark. In your tenure, grievances, what have you encountered and how was SHOPO instrumental?
Well, for me personally, I didn't
Or
have
your
any-
team.
I was good. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta say, as a commander, SHOPO was very fair. So I had a really good working relationship with SHOPO. But one thing that the public needs to remember, okay, with this, when we're talking about discipline, right? The public hears discipline, oh, bad cops, right? But the grievance process, it's a process, right? And just like criminal court or anything else, right? An investigation has to be done, and there's a process that has to be followed, right? Because the collective bargaining agreement, right?
Correct.
Officers are human beings. They're going to make mistakes, right? We have policies and procedures. Not everybody follows them to the T, right? But that's where discipline comes in to put them on the right track. That doesn't mean they should be fired for it. You follow me? So everybody makes mistakes. We're human, right? But SHOPO's there to just make sure the contract is followed properly. And, as commanders, we just want to make sure that we're following. Sometimes they put us in the right direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Gotcha. Brother Steve, we'll get back to Walt.
Yeah, no, it really is. If you think about it, it's really a collaborative effort with the administration. SHOPO is here to obviously make sure that the collective bargaining agreement is followed as with the disciplinary process. But again, we also want to be viewed as an ally and a resource. We've come on the program many times, Rick, and we said, listen, if Judge Alm and the prosecutor's office need our comments, city councilmen, SHOPO wants to be available to have robust discussion about public safety policies. We want to take care of our members, obviously, with the grievance process and everything like that. But we also want to have an interaction with the community. We want to have robust discussions with the administration and really have a collaborative effort at the end of the day, Rick, to make sure that the people that live in the different counties here in Hawaii feel safe. And that's one of the directions that SHOPO is heading. It's not just to protect our members, follow the collective bargaining. That is our number one priority. In addition to that, though, we want to build relationships with elected leadership. We want to build relationships with those in positions of power and authority within the different counties, so we can, if they need us, we can go ahead and chime in about our views and positions on ways to keep the community safe. And to Walt's point and Mark's point, provide accurate and transparent information regarding issues when police get in the news. Because as we could all agree, the coverage is not always neutral regarding police conduct, police policies. And that's where we want to step also too and educate. Fight for the members and also fight for the community to make sure that they're kept safe. And the way we can do that is collaborations with, like I said, political leaders, police administrators, and really create that dialogue.
So when we get down to a situation, and let's take one side, and that is if an officer violates and a grievance is filed, and then your investigation or collective investigation moves forward, and in the initial stages, either by admission or absolute proof, the officer did commit a violation. What happens at that point? Would you still continue with representation, or would it then be resolved via internal discipline, or at what point do attorneys get involved in that process?
Well, first and foremost, we let the officers know when they come in that SHOPO does not condone or promote bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If there is conduct that an officer is guilty of, there is discipline to be had, and they'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
Attorneys get involved only at the final stage would be at arbitration. If there is a criminal case pending or a civil case pending, SHOPO does not get involved because we cannot. Once those things are over, then we can get involved with the grievance process. So attorneys will officially get involved only, like I said, at the arbitration stage and prior if there's a criminal or civil case.
So it sounds like there is step 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is, what is step 1, 2, and 3 then?
Step 1 is where an officer is disciplined, and SHOPO's BA such as myself will go come up with an investigation. We'll go in, we'll present it to the officer's command to see if they can get the discipline reduced or removed. Mm-hmm. If it's denied at that point, we move to step 2, where we do the same presentation. We present it to an assistant chief, and we see if we can get them to reduce or rescind discipline. If we denied there, then we move on to step 3, which is where we meet with a city labor specialist. We present the same argument, see if they're willing to reduce or remove discipline. If they deny it, then we move on to step 4, which is where we do a presentation to the state board, and Steve and the state board members make a determination if they want to move forward with arbitration or not.
So that would possibly include I'm sorry, arbitration. Is that legally binding in the end? So there would not be any further?
Correct. Arbitration.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Got it.
It's basically, Rick, the last step in the grievance process. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's already 7:30. Too fast.
Okay, so one thing.
Fast.
Yes.
Give a time frame from all those steps.
From the time an officer is notified that they're under investigation until we say we get to step 4, that could take anywhere from 2 to 3 years. It's a very lengthy process.
Wow.
And if in that interim an officer is placed on ROPA, that's
ROPA is
Relief of Police Authority.
Okay.
They are all those years they're in hardship because they cannot work special duty. They cannot do all those extra things that officers do on the side.
Who determines the end of ROPA?
Police chief.
Police chief. And is that in that stage 4 arbitration, or is that a separate presentation for the cessation of ROPA?
The chief decides on removing ROPA whenever he or she deems fit, depending on the investigation or the grievance process as it moves along.
Gotcha. During that time, is the officer's upward mobility, if you will, chances for promotion, recognition, things of that nature, compromised at any point in the grievance process?
Well, yes, it is, because it has a black cloud over you. It follows you. So even when they're on ROPA and they're restricted from their authority, the department doesn't view that as discipline, because you're still receiving a paycheck. although there is a hardship aspect to that.
So I'm just going to, private sector, anybody can file a lawsuit. And it's this and that and a lawsuit, and then nothing happens. Sounds like the grievance process. Oh, I'm outraged and this officer did that and this, and then the grievance process starts. It's already on the books, right?
Correct.
And that is something that would affect an officer. Is there any way to have full restoration of an officer's status when a grievance has been filed?
That will only come if it is reversed along the step between step 1 and 3,
Okay.
or at step 4 with the arbitrator's decision.
Gotcha. And this representation is for every member of SHOPO.
That's correct, Rick. And I
Okay.
think it's important, too, to also put out to the listeners that not every administrative investigation leads to officers being put on restricted duty. It is absolutely the decision and recommendation of the assistant chiefs, the deputy chiefs, and then ultimately the chief. But not every one of our members that's under some form of administrative investigation in the different counties is necessarily put on restricted duty. That is the purview of the chiefs, and if they feel that our member needs to be put on the sidelines for a period of time during the administrative investigation, that's their purview. But not every administrative investigation it has to do with restricted police authority.
So does that, listen, this is all very, here we go, Law and Order, SUV,
Yeah.
MOUSC. During ROPA, give me your badge, give me your gun. Does that take place?
Remove your radio from your vehicle also.
And your police ID.
And your ID.
You basically, Rick, to keep it simple for the
Yeah.
listeners, you still keep your commission status as a police officer, but the chief of police has determined for a period of time during the investigation to remove your police authority. So when that occurs, you can't wear the uniform, you get turn your badge in. Basically, anything that identifies you as a law enforcement officer, that gets taken away. You turn your ID in, you turn in your credentials, and you simply get a identification badge that says employee of the department.
Gotcha.
And to clarify one thing,
Yeah.
to be relieved of police authority and to get all the authority back is solely on the chief of police. Now, he'll take recommendations, maybe, from either the command or his assistant chiefs or his advisors, but it solely rests on the chief of police.
Gotcha. 7:34 in the morning, News Radio 830. By the way, glad that Walt Gouveia is with us, business agent with SHOPO, and also the boys in studio. We do have Eric Mililani. It's 7:35. Gentlemen, go ahead. I'm going to take the call. I don't want Eric to have to wait through the break. So I want to thank you very much, Eric, for your patience. Eric and Mililani, you're on the SHOPO Hour. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Aloha, Rick. Appreciate it. Just wanted to comment on how important the police are to the security and safety of our communities. I have family that are in the police force, and they do way more than people think. They go out and do promotions and barbecues and fundraisers for kids that are sick, and then other things like that. And I just really appreciate their service and everything. Being in the military prior, security was an extremely important thing, and without police or security, there's higher risk of threat and crime and things like that. So the police need to know how much the community really appreciates them, and not so much listen to the news, of course.
Eric, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today. I appreciate it greatly. And let me get a short break in because I'll turn to the boys and get a thought or two about your call. But thank you for taking the time to call today on the SHOPO Hours. Welcome back. Sorry about that. We should probably turn the microphones on during the break just to make it a more phenomenal show. But it is the SHOPO Hour. And again, with Brother Steve, Brother Bobby is taking a day off. Brother Mark, and delighted that Brother Walt is with us in studio. Can I go to a couple of things that are top of mind that have emerged over the past, kind of the weekend, actually? There was a barricade situation in Mililani on Friday. And could you help us understand when a barricade situation develops upon arrival, what is that process that officers go through to address a barricade?
So, Rick, I think it's important to realize that we don't know when the responding officers take a call, and I don't know the circumstances of that call deeply, but what I can share with you is in order to make it a barricade situation, that's going to be the decision of the sergeant that is in patrol that shows up to that scene. Initial officers are going to go to the scene, and usually a barricade is something where you have an individual that is armed with some type of dangerous weapon that is refusing to show himself and is barricaded inside a structure. The decision to call the specialized officers that work with SSD is going to be, again, up to the patrol sergeant, at which time then the officers are going to make a perimeter. They're going to keep the scene safe, but nobody in the patrol element is going to make forced entry or make that decision. Everyone is going to stand by. The scene's going to be made safe. Evacuations are going to occur if necessary to get people out. SWAT is going to come in. Those, again, are officers that are highly trained in special tactic and skill sets, and then they're going to take command of the scene. Patrol is going to take a secondary backup role to handle all things related to, let's say, traffic, pedestrian safety, again, assisting with evacuations, and then the SSD, Specialized Services Division, is going to take over with command and then handle that situation. And whatever decisions they make, they have full authority at that point. They have tactical command. Yep.
Of all of those elements, there's one position that rises to a certain degree, and that is negotiator. How does one become assigned the position of negotiator? And is there special, obviously, training for this? And would that be the sole responsibility of that officer when any situation like this occurs?
Sure. So again, that's going to be the decision of the commander that's in charge at that scene with SSD. But we have detectives that are assigned to the CID division. They're detective sergeants, maybe even a detective lieutenant, and they are obviously trained to come out as negotiators. They will get called out, and then they will again work with the commander on scene with the Specialized Services Division, and then they'll kind of jointly go after it like that. But yeah, to be a negotiator, that is an officer, obviously, usually at the rank of sergeant or higher, that has specialized training to deal with these types of things. Yes.
This is maybe not new news, but there was, unfortunately, a fatal shooting, Makaha, over the weekend, involved a 17-year-old victim. The capture of the suspect is another teenager. I'm looking through some of the news headlines. Teen. It just seems that there's much more aggressive crimes being committed, allegedly, by teenagers. And that's obviously disconcerting. How is teen crime treated differently than adult crime, or it doesn't matter, it's the crime?
Well, you gotta look at the age, and that's because of the laws, right? For teen crimes. Teen crimes have always been there. We I worked with Wally 30 years ago, right? D7. We worked together. We're dealing with these juveniles from, way back when, and they are treated differently in the court system, right? And even when I was a detective, we have to charge them differently. We can't hold them more than 6 hours. You got to let them go. They really need to do something very egregious to hold them in family court. So the process is different when they do reach adulthood, right? Now the juvenile rap is wiped away, right? And you start fresh. Mm-hmm. So to me personally, they get away with too much. The court system lets them get away with too much.
But I appreciate the fact that it's always been with us. I think what is kind of astounding right now, the reporting cycle of us being made aware, because you'll find it with, I talked to Mike Kitchens later on today on Stolen Stuff Hawaii, and then you have a whole different type of reporting process where it just seems now it's happening even more. Yeah. And the violence is up. I live downtown, and you're D1, and I come across these stories, unfortunately, quite a bit.
You know, Rick, when you shared that story, the first thing I thought of is, the Police Activities League. Within Honolulu PD here in Honolulu County, we have a group of officers that their sole job is to build relationships with kids. And, even though staffing is low and even though budget's tight, it just reminds the community that the police departments need to try to get at these kids when they're young before they get into these things. Because let's be real clear, okay? When it's teen crime, it's not one teen, it's groups of teens. And if you want to call it a gang, you want to call it that is what it is. It's different gangs trying to flex on each other, create status, make a name for themselves. And that's where, if we can, as law enforcement officers, approach them before it gets to that point. That, again, it just reminds me, as I'm sitting across from you today, the importance of, at least in Honolulu, the police activities leagues and the opportunities that we try to give the young people and have the officers that wear the badge reach out and mentor and develop those relationships. It also speaks to the breakdown of the family. I mean, when you talk about teens shooting teens, there's a breakdown here that's just it's really tragic. It goes to who's in the home, mentors, role models, what's going on, the breakdown, and it reminds us that we can't forget about the kids. And again, it's why I feel that the police activity leagues, at least here in Honolulu, is important and serves a vital role.
Brother Walt, before we take a break, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, what's frustrating is that, you see after incidences like this occur, then you see family, friends come out of the woodwork in support of this victim or a suspect. That should have happened prior, not after the fact, because it's too late. The damage has already been done.
We should have a PAL for adults. I mean, to get into homes. And
yeah,
isn't that when you go to Foodland Happy Hour? No, sorry, different.
Oh, there's a different type of
different
counseling.
type of PAL. Okay,
yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah, that's. Ooh. I don't know.
Foodland Happy Hour. Okay.
You don't have video, do you? By any chance? Okay, thank goodness.
Rick, we can't forget to thank Eric for his call. Eric, the guy that just called in before the last break, Eric, we appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to call and give the officers that recognition. We appreciate you, brother. And like we've said many times on the show, a successful police department, it's vital to have community support, and we appreciate you, and thanks for the call.
On that note, 7:49 in the morning, it is the Rick Amana program and the SHOPO Hour. Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the SHOPO Hour in the waning moments, but still have some time for you to give us a call. And let's head on over to line number 1 here in Honolulu. It is Detroit who is on line 1. Detroit, you're on with the fellas. Good morning.
You're not very good. You guys are outstanding. But anyways, there was a gang back in Detroit years ago when I used to live there. Oh, probably 50 years ago now. They called them Young Boys Incorporated. And it was a gang. They sold heroin on the streets. And they were 8 years old and above. And it was all organized. It was organized crime is what it was. And they worked out of Detroit, Chicago. You might not have heard of them since you were living there. And Seattle. And they give them medallions and stuff for the amount of heroin they used to sell during the day. It was over $1 million worth of heroin these guys used to push on the street corners and everywhere else. It's all on YouTube if you'd like to see it, but it sounds like that's what we're getting with these young people. The way where they're operating, how they can operate. The pushers actually looked for these kids and incorporated them. It was a mafia, is what it was.
Wow, thank you very much for the call. We're running out of time, but I thank you so much for taking the time. Gentlemen, thoughts on Detroit's call?
No, we appreciate his participation. And just for the listeners, Rick, what basically is happening, you have adults that are selling drugs, pushing drugs, they're criminals, and what they're using is they're taking advantage of the juvenile justice system. And what they're doing is they're recruiting kids, to what he's talking about, they're recruiting kids then to push the dope and push the drugs, because if they get pinched or arrested, they're going to be let right out because they're not part of the adult system.
And back to work.
Right. Speaking openly, I don't see that taking place right now in the counties throughout our state. However, again, as Mark alluded to earlier, there is a difference. You have juvenile justice system, and then you have the adult system. And when you talk about kids doing that, they're treated differently. And you get some adults that want to exploit these kids and use them really as mules and have them push that dope, because if they get pinched, they're not going to get put in the adult system.
I've been told, and it's been mentioned, that we have a profound gang element in our city, but it's so, quote unquote, under the radar. It's not obvious, similar to what Detroit had talked about, what he experienced. But gang activity is profound. Yes?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's been noted by officers for years now. Every housing complex is a different faction, and they spread out and they look for victims in downtown, wherever they have people congregating, and whoever they can find at the time, and that's who they exploit.
Steve, you're D1.
Yeah, no, look, complete transparency. Yeah, there are gangs. Of course there are. When you get a bunch of people that want to ignore the normal rules of society and want to get together, they're there. The one thing, though, that where we're holding the line is we're not allowing gun violence to escalate with these criminal organizations. It hasn't taken to that level yet. But to Walt's point, yeah, and we know where they are. Make no mistake about it, guys. We're not trying to throw the alarm bells. The county officers and the officers that work in the different counties, we know who the bad guys are. We know who the players are. We know who they are. But remember, before we can do anything about it, we have a series of rules that we have to follow. And if we can take them to jail, we're going to do that. And then we take them to jail. We get the process started. The prosecutor gets involved, and there we go.
We're already at 7:57 in the morning. Yes, it is moving by quickly. I want to go around the table, and first of all, I want to thank Brother Walt for joining us. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to start with you. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with today in any regard?
Just don't forget what the officers are out there to do. They're there to protect you. They're not the bad guys. Officers are human. They will make mistakes, but they're there to protect and serve the public. And don't be afraid to approach them and just talk to them. They're not the bad guys. It's
when I'm out and about in town hall meetings and officers, and just to walk up and say hi, because I kind of watch and see people walk by all the time, don't even, just to walk up and shake a brother or sister's hand and say thank you, I think is something we should all do. Brother Mark, because you're
me?
Yeah, because you're all over that microphone, brother. I can see that already.
Waiting for Steve to go. Okay.
Oh, that's all right.
No, so this week there is promotional interviews for lieutenant and sergeant all week. Very stressful for the officers going, and I just want to say good luck to everybody, and thanks for taking the initiative to be a supervisor. So good luck to all those people going to interviews, and congratulations to E.M. Tongi. Okay.
Yeah. Wow, he got very excited. American Idol, he hit the counter and everything. Goodness. Thank you, Mark.
Rick, we just appreciate community support, the men and women in the different counties that wear the uniform. We really appreciate community support. We appreciate the callers that called in today. And please come feel free to visit us at shopohawaii.org.
Well done. Thank you very much. Brother Steve, Brother Mark, Brother Walt, thank you. Come back again, would you please?
Thank you, brother.
Be great. And thank you for joining us for the SHOPO Hour.